So, looks like it's just me and you now. So I got a whole list of questions, and we sent them out to you. Nick has been absolutely amazing as far as a go-between and setting me up with a big list in front of me so that I'm not just sitting here with my finger in my nose.
Shout out to Nick and Callahan. They've done amazing work here.
It's really the earmark of this whole tournament is that it's run in this way that's just so awesome and kind of almost like organic, but at the same time so stringent. You know, like I keep remarking on all of the different data that goes into it, and I'm not a data person. You know, I'm a run at stuff with a hammer kind of person. So it's so awesome for me to see that this is something that you can kind of look at, just like the Yisan and Silvala discussion. You can watch this tournament and you can go deep into the nitty gritty of it and get all into the points, or you can just look at it at a surface level and just bug out over each of the games. So speaking of the general kind of composition of it, the structure and all that, what are your initial impressions, aside from, you know, obviously Callahan and Nick knocking it out of the park? What are your initial impressions of the MLC?
I love it. I honestly love the league structure. I vastly prefer it to like general cEDH tournaments because I think it kind of reduces the single game variance when you have people playing games over long periods. I think the MLC specifically has done a great job in building intrigue and kind of ensuring that there's variance between decks, and the pick'ems have been really cool too. It's just been a fantastic event all over.
So you obviously watched this last game, and I would assume you enjoyed it. Have you been watching the games as they've been going, or catching up on the recaps or anything like that?
Most of them, I have my favorites in the decks that I'm following and the people that I'm following, and I tend to check out games as I can.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it, and and that's something I keep going back on. Is that right from the beginning? I've seen a lot of organized cEDH events, and like the one-day tournaments, they kind of come and go. It's like a flash event. To have a big league event like this, that is a global event, has been so amazing. Do you think an event like this is more appealing to viewers than your traditional one-off tournament?
Absolutely, and I think specifically to the people that want to get really invested and want to follow the event as the event and kind of to check out the meta in general. I think that I think that the draft is really compelling. There's a lot of nuance to choosing what deck out of your pool to bring and present to your opponents, and there's been a lot of variance in it, and really just some really smart picks, I think.
Seeing the matchups each week has been a real joy, and seeing people then have to play a deck in a very specific way in order to play it into that matchup has been really interesting to see. I don't know if you heard earlier, I was talking about I've been casting Rebels games almost weekly, and every week before her game, I'll in order to get a little bit of insight into the casting, I'll say, what's the strategy today? And sometimes it's been, I'm going to try to win. And some days it's
put an Archon on the board on turn 1.
Oh my goodness, what a crazy play. That was such a joy to see. Just start the game 4 turns ahead and everybody else start the game 2 turns behind is that's about as good as you can get. But to see to see people go into each game and say, okay, I have to play this deck with a very specific game plan, but I have to play it in an even more specific way to get around these things. I have to mull to a certain card, that sort of thing. So I do think that is a huge strength of it, is it encourages growth in the individual player. Are there any things that you think are a particular weakness about this format?
So I think that one thing that kind of gets neglected in the way that this is set up is there's not a lot of brew strength being shown because the decks are already pre-constructed. Aside from the tech slots that people got to play with and whatnot, but you don't get to see a deck say Hisp's Kodama deck just pop out of nowhere and take the tournament by surprise. So I kind of miss that as really liking deck theory and that kind of thing. But it is nice to get to see the whole cast of decks that kind of compose cEDH as we know it.
It's really been a joy to see I wouldn't quite call it a proving ground, but basically a mix of these decks that, like, we all kind of look at this cEDH deck list database as this kind of, like, I'm sorry,
Monolith.
at a
Yeah.
loss for, yes, exactly. It's a database. It's this thing that we all kind of look to as being a unifying structure, a unifying list. And to see these things on this list now get pitted against each other in this wild way has been a real joy. I think it's really cool to see them all kind of, it's like getting to see, like your roster of superheroes duke it out, and to also encourage each player to maybe play outside of their play style has been really interesting as well.
And
Are
I
there
get to see
any?
my favorites pop up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could discuss the finals lineup, but my boy Animar, rooting for
Yeah,
him. But I'm also rooting for Ian of cEDH Cast because he is a good friend of mine. I'm rooting for all of them.
absolutely.
I know all of these people and I know all these
Right.
decks. I'm really excited to see how this goes.
This as a final, this is about as wild as it's going to get. Like, I couldn't ask for a better
Two-teamer
squad
decks
of
in the
people.
finals is very interesting to me.
And truly some titans of the format as well, like
Absolutely.
both the decks and the players. It's really going to be a joy. And I'm something that's gotten me vested in this has been this, my friends are playing in it, which I think that's one of my favorite things about cEDH is there's everywhere you go, there's going to be a different meta. And over the last year and a half, the meta has kind of unified somewhat, just because of the online play. It's never going to entirely unify, but there is a little bit more of like a common ground. So to see people kind of pulled from all over creates an empathy from all over and an interest from all over to draw people into this. Are there any other particular organizational lessons that you think we could pick up from the MLC that we can, put towards other tournaments or learn from?
I would really like. I may have already gone to this point, but I would really like to see drafting become more of a cEDH event mainstay. I really do think that a lot of the nuance is picking decks that interact well with with what your opponents are bringing to the table. And I do think that online play, as like say Cockatrice, comes to kind of homogenize in everybody wanting to play four-color staple partners. And I think that basically enforcing variance can sort of reveal certain play strengths of players as they kind of demonstrate their skills.
I think so as well. It's really good to see the different things that this has brought out of everybody. Now, on the end of this, coming out the other side of this, do you think that this event will influence the community? Like, will people adjust their brews and stuff because of this? And
I
should
think
they even?
I think absolutely. Specifically, I'll give the example of the Animar deck that's in the finals. It's honestly very different from the build that I had and the build that a lot of the mainstay Animar pilots that are on the deck on the Animar Discord work on. There's been a lot of like finite life kills between Terror of the Peaks and Walking Ballista and copying Terror of the Peaks and just like a really unique Animar build that prioritizes disruption over kind of the creature tutor lines that have been used elsewhere. I think there's been a lot of innovation, and I think I think this will kind of reveal that certain kinds of decks are more viable than people give them credit for. I think people put up really interesting results on a lot of dark horse decks.
It's been amazing to see the decks that have flourished. I know going into it, like I said, I've been talking with Rebel so closely, but there were some of the decks that she ended up with having randomed her choices. Some of the decks that she ended up with, we were skeptical of and have produced absolutely phenomenal results. Just like stellar results. So it's been really cool to see these decks perform in like there were decks that I never would have thought of playing, and seeing the work that they've put in has been truly amazing. Now, as speaking to metas specifically, would you see that the online meta and the tournament meta are different? Do you see that there's any specific differences between them, or would you say that things are
If you mean
closer together?
like paper tournaments as cEDH tournaments. I think there is a kind of a really large gap there. I think what you get in paper metas is a lot of times very dedicated pilots of maybe more dark horse decks that show up to paper tournaments because that's what they have access to, that's what they play, that's what they have reps on. I think like Michael Levine is a good example of somebody that, you know, just hardline mains a deck and he's a terror on it. I think you see that a lot more in paper play than online, where people, you know, are more free to just kind of you know, try to brew up a meta deck pile and pilot it to victory. I think you get a lot more of that online and a lot less of that in paper when the deck costs, you know, what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's something that I've seen for the longest is that, yeah, like you go out to the, you know, your Magic Fest or whatever, and people are playing their babies, you know, they've brought the deck that they've put the most time into. Whereas, yes, with this, with the online meta, yeah, like I was able to just put together like just like, oh, I want to try this deck out for a whim, and I put together, I don't know, Jessica Ishai, and I was like, okay, that was fun to try, and I can move on to the next one just right away. So it is really cool to be able to see that. Um, so this community, it's growing, it's changing all the time. It's something that I've been so proud to see. And specifically with this event, again, to see this event bring people together. Now, you are a known name in a named man, as it were, in the community. I was really excited. I am really excited to get the chance to talk to you and to kind of go over some of these questions. I told my co-host Cyrus, I was like, I'm interviewing Shaper, like that's crazy. And we both at the same time were kind of like, I think I said that you're a myth, and he said that you're a ghost. So both of those I think were really, really awesome. Like just somebody who's just, we hear the name like we've known about forever. So this is truly a privilege for me to be able to speak with you. And I'm interested to hear some of your origins about kind of what got you into the meta, and from a top-down perspective as well. You know, where you feel the community is. So how does it feel to you to kind of see what's happened with the community over the last, you know, however long it's been? Like, how does it feel to watch this community flourish?
Honestly, it's amazing. I am still starstruck that I'm here at all. You know, a league like this has been, you know, a dream of the community for a really long time, and you know, a league of this scale is just really something. I got into cEDH in probably it was 2013 with my college play group. You know, we went to a tech school and we had an EDH scene. It wasn't known as cEDH per se, but you know, everybody was trying to optimize. There were a bunch of college kids trying to, you know, outdo our buddies and that sort of thing. And you know, we went from, you know, building like my first deck was like a really flavorful like Riku of Two Reflections deck that, you know, admittedly ran Kiki Pod and High Tide and stuff, but you know, to me, it wasn't about, you know, trying to win or anything. It was just about trying to put Progenitor Mimic on my Consecrated Sphinx and go to town. And you know, it's like, you know, that caused people to net deck, and we got like influence from Mox Snakes and that sort of thing. And you know, all of a sudden we were playing like, you know, Grixis Storm versus Doomsday Zur versus Tassiger versus whatever, and you know, the arms race just got out of control like it does for every other play group. And
Absolutely.
and you know, once there were like kind of obvious titans in like the ancient Nas decks and that sort of thing, yeah, we the kind of the online community started kind of getting together, and you know, we started Brews Day and that sort of thing, and we just kind of tried different things, you know, trying to make the expand the format a little bit, you know, because you know, I think we were like, everyone's always kind of under the EDH spell. You know, you want to create something new, you want to make your baby the terror of your meta and that sort of thing. And you know, it started out like that, and you know, people just started paying attention to the things that we were doing, and you know, kind of looking at our brews and seeing what they could do. And then, you know, you start getting messages like, you know, oh, I really like this like Tassiger Elf Ball deck that you put together. Like, you know, tell me more about it. And, you know, we realized that, you know, there was actually an audience that, you know, also wanted to elevate their EDH game. And I don't know, the rest is history.
Yeah, so you went through just like I got that list of kind of community questions, and you nailed a whole bunch of them in that. So it's awesome to hear a kind of origin story, and I think it's something that brings like creates so much empathy. You know, just to hear that everybody's gone through this experience. You know, I played for so long, so long ago. I played when I was in high school. I would go to Neutral Ground in New York and play in Type 2 tournaments during like Urza's Saga, and that was just so wild to me. And then I went away and didn't play for 15 years or something, and saw these commander decks and was like, this seems cool. Let's get a pod together with me and my, buddies who I play other games with. And it just like it exactly that. It became the arms race. Just let's put some of our old cards in it. And we had like, all these cards from Urza's Saga left over. It was like, oh, these really change what this deck can do. You put a survival in Marin and all of a sudden it does really different things.
Yeah, it does.
So it was really cool to see. It's awesome to hear that you've gone through the same experiences. Now, you talked a little bit about kind of becoming a presence online. Was that something that you did by choice? Like, did you decide to take on this kind of responsibility and initiative within the community, or is it something that happened more organically, or how did that come about?
It was kind of an organic process. I was hanging out a lot on the cEDH Discord, and we'd get a lot of people pass through. A lot of people would come to just talk EDH or brew decks or whatever, and it was just kind of a fun thing that we were doing. And it actually kind of started with before Discord had bots. We really wanted to have the ability to look up cards online. So I coded our card fetching bot called Yawgmoth. And that kind of caught the attention of like the people that ran the community at the time, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to help out this, that, and the other thing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And that kind of evolved into so once I was kind of asked to help out, I wanted to do my job and further the community and stuff. So I started running the Brews Day events, which is really when I think things started taking off. We brewed Gitrog the day that it came out. That ended up in us like manually looping with Kozlik Praetor's Grasp like 3 times over like 25 minutes in the table scooping.
So for those of us who aren't familiar, what is the Brews Day event that you speak about?
Oh yeah, so Brews Day was every Tuesday. It was Brews Day Tuesdays. We would all get together and we would decide like we would take some deck idea that we thought we had promise at cEDH tables, and we'd brew it up. Like the first one was Gitrog, the second one was like a Reanimator Grixis Twin under Jaleva at the time because there was no Kess, which got upgraded to Kess later. We did Tassiker Elf Ball. We would just like throw things at the wall, and then we'd play them against like known decks to see if they had legs. And sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. And I would do a write up every week. You can probably still find them online of just like what our results were and what we learned from the endeavor and that sort of thing.
And this was brewing over like a Discord forum or like a live setting?
We would brew it in a Discord chat.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like a ton of fun. And then go ahead.
No, I was just saying it would be like, it started out like, 10 people, 15 people, whatever, just in a Discord chat, and everybody just kind of being like, this is tech, put this in. And I'd have to be like, no, no, So we got a lot of brewing experience. This was just great times on Discord. We were doing it just to kind of hang out and do cEDH things. And the format felt very like underexplored at that time. So we were always finding new interactions, and we'd be like, oh, that's a great one. Let's do a Brews Day on it. And
yep. No, yeah. That's cool to hear that it's something that came about so organically. So back to the initial parts.
I see you in chat.
Back to the initial part of this question, as a community leader and seeing what does it mean to you personally to see this community grow? Where do you
I'm just really happy that I could have a part in bringing this wonderful game to people. Anything that I've done to improve EDH or get people interested or enable people to have fun times with their friends is I treasure that.
And where why do you think people find so much enjoyment in the cEDH meta specifically? Like, I know you talked about finding these new interactions and the arms race that happens, but is there a particular thing in cEDH that you think speaks to people and brings enjoyment?
I'll answer your question the wrong way. I think a lot of the things that attract people to cEDH are the things that attract people to EDH. Okay. I think that it's still a social game at its core. People still want to have fun times with their friends, but they just play Magic in in a kind of specific way. I think that, Sheldon kind of addressed it, that, there are people that want the high octane competitive games where you're, tooth and nail getting at each other's throats. And some people just want to play baseball and they want to throw out their, really sweet, like, 5-drop plus 5-drop combo and see what goes on. And I think that there's space for both people. And, there are definitely people that are interested in what cEDH has to offer.
I think that that definitely goes a long way. Like the high octane plays specifically, like something that really is compelling about Magic to me is that, like, especially EDH is like, one, there's a social aspect. You can look forward to a game all week. I get to hang out with my friends, and there's kind of almost like a gachapon aspect of it, especially with EDH. You never know how these games are going to shake out. And with a cEDH deck, it's a little more refined. But there's definitely something to be said for brewing this deck that you then you can brew this thing. You can put all the work into it in the world, but you can't do much. You can't see it flourish sitting alone by yourself. You need to go hang with you need to hit like this massive you need to do this thing that's this massive dopamine rush, right? You need to play the deck, you need to hit the right cards, and you need to do it with your friends. So everybody's this kind of like energy pool that everybody gets excited over. So I think there's a lot of things about EDH and cEDH specifically that truly excite people. So I'm glad to hear that, they all resonate, that you see all of them as well. We're getting close to kind of moving into the next segment. But are there any specific thoughts that you have about, wherever we happen to be, cEDH, this tournament, anything else you want to share with us? Not to put you on the spot.
I just think the community is going to continue growing. cEDH is taking off, and I'm along for the ride.
Awesome. Is there any specific, what do you think could be some next steps for the meta? Do you think that they're going to keep making pushed cards that change cEDH? Do you think they're going to dial it back a little bit?
Unfortunately, I think the power creep's just going to keep coming, and we're going to have to sort that out. I do think that there's some interesting play with some of the really powerful asymmetrical hate bears that they've decided that specifically Black deserves. With like Voidwalker, Drant's another one, Hull Breacher, Opposition Agent, that sort of thing. So I think that hopefully they don't keep printing cards that just end the game like on the play turn one, but we'll see how it goes. I'm sure we can adjust.
I mean, even just in the cards that have been put out recently, the stuff that they talked about with the like the new Innistrad cards, they dropped like some 1-drop. It's like a 1-drop zombie that does like 5 things. I couldn't even believe it. So it's
so Ragavan, honestly, like,
yeah, right. Like there's these. But go ahead.
Now just Birds of Paradise stapled to Dark Confidant. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah, they're just the power level of these things, and the ceiling keeps getting kicked up, and it's so funny to see it. And on the one hand, like, I'm always thrilled about, like, oh, sick, like this is exactly what I need to fill out the curve in this powerful cube that I'm building, or whatever, to fill. Like, it's just so funny to see these cards that are like, like basically the what is it, the automated questing beast generator. Like, it's just 15 different things just on a body. So it's really cool to see it, but at the same time it's like, like you hope that they don't continue to drop these game ending cards, these cards that become auto includes, or commanders that are A plus B commanders, that sort of thing.
And I think as power creep happens, like, we actually do get somewhat more variance when they print very broken things, because they can compete with the broken things that already exist. I think like Breach is a good example. Like, we were there was a lot of Thassa Oracling going around, and there's still a lot of Thassa Oracling going around, but just having combos that are like approximately in the same zone for other colors does allow there to be more deck variance. And so I hope that power creep happens along those lines. It'd be really nice if white continued to get win cons and that kind of thing, but we'll see how things go. Shout out to Oswald Fiddlebender.
I haven't seen or like poured over any specific lists.
I'm watching the Brewers brew, and they're gonna win.
They're
We'll see.
fiddling real hard for sure. I know
They
one of the
absolutely are.
dudes in my home meta definitely built one, and they were talking about getting turn 2 dubs with it and all that stuff. So it's gonna do scary things, and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
I think that we are going to move on to introducing the analysts for the next game. But Shaper, this has been an absolute pleasure to get to speak with you, to pick your brain a little bit about the tournament meta, about this tournament, and about the overarching, just where we're all at with the cEDH meta. Thank you so
Thanks for
much for
having me
taking
on.
the time to
I
speak with us.
really enjoyed it.